You are now ready to take action to finally change your life for the better since 2020. You are deeply in tune with the voice of your heart, which you've spent years trying to hear and decipher. You also have the courage, motivation, and drive in order to follow it. And you have the wisdom of what won't work, since I know you've tried it all, as well as the wisdom of what finally will to enable you to succeed. Now, at this full moon in the sign of Libra, all that is left is for you to stop hesitating, stop holding yourself back, stop doubting yourself, and stop overthinking. Now, all that is left is for you to get out of your own way, trust your instincts, and take action. Because if you can, your life has the chance to be something totally different and better by this July of 2025, which may happen in surprising ways that you don't currently see coming. Hey everyone, I'm your astrologer Brittany of Ethereal Astrology, helping you to see the larger story of your life. Today you're watching your astrology horoscope for the collective for the full moon in the sign of Libra, which occurs on Saturday, April 12th, 2025 at 8:22 p.m. Eastern Time or 5:22 p.m. Pacific Time. Now let's go ahead and let's hop right into it. Here, in order to get started, what I like to do first is to place on the chart what it is that I'll be referring to and talking about in this video so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. This video is, of course, for that full moon in Libra, as I've said, and because of that, I've adjusted the chart accordingly for that lunar event. I know that because I've got the moon here in the sign of Libra, making an exact opposition over here with the sun in Aries. And when the moon opposes the sun here from this angle, that is what is considered a full moon. And of course, it's in the sign of Libra because that's where the moon is at this time. Hey, now what is this about? To talk about just big general themes that may come up here. Well, full moons, let's start there, are all about either stepping into things that we've been working towards for quite some time here, or if not stepping into them, then about ending those things. Since a full moon does technically start the second half or ending of the lunar month or lunar cycle of which it is a part of here. Not only are full moons about that, but they also do tend to bring with it, I believe, some sort of insight or illumination that maybe we did not see before, because that is when the moon is the brightest in the sky and can be the most seen. Not only that, but I also do believe that full moons as well can be a lot about decisions here and choices that need to be made, because it is a function of an opposition, and it is hard to do two opposite things at once. So usually some kind of choice needs to be made in order to reconcile the two. Here, that's going on. Okay, now what is it that we are stepping into, or what is it that we're ending and getting illumination here and making decisions about at this time? Well, that's going to be Libra, because that is the sign here that this full moon is in. Okay, what is Libra all about? Well, first thing here, Libra is an air sign. Air signs do tend to be more in the mind, thinking about things. And Libra especially tends to weigh out facts, weigh out information, being symbolized by the scales. So that's one of the things. And I need to note here, I'm leaning more towards endings at this full moon instead of stepping into things. Okay, and the reason why I'm leaning more towards endings here at this time is a few reasons. The main reason, I think, is because the South Node, while not currently in the sign of Libra, was in the sign of Libra all last year. And even though the South Node is no longer there, I believe that we're still feeling it. We're still feeling the effects and the influences of the South Node in the sign of Libra, and will continue to for about another 8 years until the North Node comes back. And these things just don't turn on and off like a light switch. Okay, not only that, but we did also just have a solar eclipse in the opposite sign of Aries. So it would make sense here that we would get some sort of energy on the other end here to kind of close out that cycle as well. So I'm going to go more towards endings here at this time. And again, with Libra being an air sign about thinking or being in the mind, I think we're really trying to end that, or to let that go. Let go of the thinking or overthinking, and let go of the constantly having to weigh out facts and weigh out information. Okay, not only that, but other things that Libra has to do with here. Libra is a Venus ruled sign. Okay, Venus is not about action. It can be more about holding back, waiting, I might say, waiting until we've thought about everything, waiting until everything is good here. That's going on. And I think that's another thing that at this full moon, which to me skews more endings, we're trying to let go of an end. Not only the thinking or overthinking and the weighing out the facts and information, but we're also trying to let go of the waiting to do anything else and the hesitating to act until we've thought through everything perfectly here. And not only that, but Venus, Libra correlates to Venus. Venus is typically about relationships, and so too is Libra. I think that's how most people know and think of it as well. And not only is it about relationships, but it's trying to kind of work with other people, compromise with other people here as well, and get maybe the ideas and the thoughts, with it being an air sign, of other people. And again, with, to me, this full moon pulling more endings, I think we're trying to end that as well. End the overthinking, the weighing out of too much information, end the waiting or hesitating to say, do other things that we might want to do, and either end relationships or relationship patterns where maybe we depend too much on relationships and their opinions that's going on, and maybe even end a time of compromising and not compromise as much here as we used to as well. Not only that, but another thought, and I think this is the last significant thought here I'll give you about Libra. Libra also technically correlates to the harvest. Here, that's the sign that correlates, especially in the northern hemisphere. Harvest is really about kind of the results of our past efforts in a lot of ways, and things that have gone on there here. And I think that this full moon is also kind of about that, letting go of the past. Maybe I'll say that, the things in the past that did or did not work here in a lot of ways, so that ultimately, especially with it being a cardinal sign, something else can begin, something else can take form here that's happening too at this time that I think we're trying to work through. Another thought, just came to me, I should note, is that Libra, again, being symbolized by the scales, is about balance here too. And I think we're trying to let go of everything needing to be balanced here as well, so that we're not afraid to say, go all in on something here that might be better for us as well. Okay, so those to me, I think for now, are going to be the big themes coming up here at this full moon in Libra, generally for the collective. And to repeat that one more time, I just like to repeat, it helps me with the interpretation here, is that at this full moon in Libra, what we're trying to do is to let go of overthinking and weighing out too much information. We're also trying to let go of waiting, hesitating, and holding ourselves back. We're also trying to let go of relationships or relationship patterns that may be codependent or keeping us stuck, overthinking, hesitating as well, and let go of the compromises involved in that. And we're also trying to let go of as well some things from the past that may or may not have worked out in the way that we might like, so that we can begin again doing other things and go all in on them as well. Okay, and to let go of the balance, the need for balance that we might have. Okay, now before I move forward to give you more of the specific details about this full moon in Libra and the aspects that are occurring to it and around it, I do like to go backwards in time here for a minute before I go forwards. I do like to go backwards in time to give you more of the context of how we got here to this full moon in Libra, because I think that can significantly change this full moon itself and how we experience it, since we have a full moon in Libra every year. It's the other stuff that occurs that's not the same. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It can get kind of long here. If you like that and want to listen, stay. But if you don't want to listen and just want to get straight into it, totally fine. You can skip ahead in this video to the specific details. I've put the links in the description box here in order for you to easily move ahead now. But I'm going to go ahead and get into it here with this past context. And to get into it, I'm going to go back to an alignment that had happened quite a while ago now. It was the beginning of 2020, somewhere around January to April of 2020. Okay, what happened there is we had a very rare and difficult alignment here. That alignment was Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in the South Node coming conjunct here towards the middle to late degrees of Capricorn. It was rare because Saturn and Pluto only come conjunct every 35 years and not always with Jupiter in the South Node there. And it was difficult because it's Saturn and Pluto, typically known as malefic planets. And because the South Node is involved, which also is a challenge, indicating things that we're stuck in. And Jupiter was there in Capricorn, a sign it does not like to be in and does not function that well in. So rare challenge, only happens about once every 35 years or so. What was that rare difficulty that we were experiencing? Well, Saturn was here and so was the South Node. And both of these things can bring a feeling of stuckness, just feeling stuck or burdened or just not right here, not able to really move forward. And Pluto can indicate change, especially significant change, big change. And I think endings first, to end things. And I think to end the things that we were feeling stuck by in our lives here that was going on. And I think the reason why we needed to make big change to end things we were stuck by is because I think either the past 35 years of our life before 2020, we just didn't like any of it and we wanted to change it, or we liked some of it here, but we just had outgrown it. You know, things change, we move on. We had just outgrown it and needed to now make big change to end all the things we didn't like. So that is my starting point here. January, April 2020, we realized I feel stuck in my life because there's been a lot of things going on the past 35 years I either haven't liked or have outgrown, and now I need to make big, difficult endings in order to get out of so I can move forward. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention happened 2 years later, which was somewhere around April of 2022. Around April of 2022, we had a new moon solar eclipse here in Taurus, where the North Node was at that time. Okay, I want to consider that as a good thing because it was on the North Node, which I just tend to like better. What was that about? New moons are about new beginnings. Solar eclipses superpower that. Again, it's more positive with the North Node, and it's in Taurus. Taurus is about fertility. It's about abundance, of being associated with spring, here new life and more stability around that. So I think what happened 2 years later in April 2022 is that we felt as though we had ended enough things from the past 35 years or so that we didn't like, that we were now in a little bit of a different and better place that we felt was more fertile and more abundant for us to grow and do something else new, different, and better here that might be more secure and more in our own interest. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which unfortunately happened only like 2 weeks after that. Also somewhere around April of 2022 in the opposite sign here. And that was a full moon lunar eclipse on the South Node here in the sign of Scorpio. Now, this to me was a bit of a challenge here. This to me was a bit of a challenge for a few reasons. First and foremost, because it's on the South Node. South Node, again, tends to be just more difficult because it indicates things that we're stuck in, that are no longer useful for us anymore, that are just hard to let go of. Also too, because the moon was here in Scorpio, a sign it just doesn't like to be in either and doesn't function that well in. So this to me was also difficult. What was the difficulty? Well, the South Node again indicates stuckness. We're stuck in something, not able quite to move forward on that new beginning we just were hoping for 2 weeks ago. There. Why were we stuck here? What was holding us back? Well, that's going to be the Scorpio traits, not because Scorpio is a bad sign. Scorpio is a great sign. All the signs are great. Just because the South Node was there at that time, which tends to bring out the more negative traits. And Scorpio, when negative, can bring a few things. Well, Scorpio is correlated to Pluto a lot about change. And in this case, can be too much change here that's going on, right? And while some change can be good, we really were making, I think, too much of it. Because remember, since 2020, that's what 2020 was all about. Big change, big change. Well, now we needed to stop making as many big changes, right? Because we are in a different place and we have gotten rid of some of the other stuff. So that was the first thing. We're stuck in making too many change. We need to stop a little bit with that so that we can build something new, right? And building something new requires more stability and more security and not all of this chaos. Not only that, but another thing that Scorpio has to do with, it's a water sign. It has to do with our emotions. And Scorpio in particular can do with more of our deeper emotions or traumatic emotions, right? Which made sense from the past few years. If we didn't like our life and we're making hard endings, that could have been rather traumatic. So we still had a lot of traumatic emotions that we're feeling. And while it made total sense why we might have traumatic feelings don't help us to build something new. Exactly. Because if we keep indulging our traumatic emotions, we might weave that into the new stuff we want to create, which cannot be helpful. So we also needed to kind of release and work through some negative emotions from the past so that they didn't come with us into our new experience. Not only that, but Scorpio as well is about money here, and especially losing money when negative. And so another thing that could have been going on is that we could have had difficulties with money, especially from stuff we were ending in the few years prior here, or some debts or things like that, that also we had to deal with, that we needed to take some time to pay off, right? Because you don't want to start a new chapter in life in debt. You want to kind of have a clean slate. So we really needed to pay off some of those things. Not only that, but Scorpio is a relationship sign here as well, and can indicate, again, when negative here, being too intertwined with relationships or even abusive relationships here as well. That was going on, that we needed to untangle ourselves from, right? They're not easy to do. And so we also were stuck in some of those that we needed to untangle ourselves from, because you don't want to start a new experience in life with people that are not meant for you here or holding you back. So we also needed to do that. That was hard and frustrating, right? Making us feel stuck and unable to move forward. So that was also April of 2022. And if I can be honest with you, I think it took us almost all of 2022 for us to really do that. I don't think it was until the following year, April of 2023 here, where we finally were able to kind of get rid of some of our debt, some of these relationships that were problematic, some of our traumatic emotions, and calm those, and some of the change. And that's because something significant happened in April 2023. Okay. And that is going to be a solar eclipse that we had then here in Aries on the North Node, while also two other planets had just changed signs. Pluto briefly left Capricorn and was in Aquarius, and Saturn left Aquarius and was in Pisces. Okay. And all these things can bring new beginnings. Aries, because it's the first sign of the zodiac and there was a solar eclipse there, the new moon. Also too, because when planets change signs to signs that they haven't been in for a while, they also bring a new energy, right, of some sort here as well that's going on. So in April of 2023, not only do I feel like we kicked some of those things that were holding us back in the year prior, the money and the relationships and the emotions and the change, but we also felt more able to try again for a second time to move forward into new, different, and better experiences of life that really we've been planting the seeds for since 2020 here to occur. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which happened, I think, roughly a few months later, maybe like a month later, May of 2023. In May of 2023, we then had Venus go retrograde here in the sign of Leo. Okay, now this to me is a little bit of a challenge here that's going on because it is a planet that's moving backward, appearing to move backwards in the sky. That's not its natural direction here, that it's going, and it's a personal planet, and personal planets tend to be felt more personally, right? More closely in our day-to-day life. So this to me was another challenge and another part of us feeling stuck again and unable to fully move forward on this different and better experience of life we'd been trying to do. Why? Why this time were we stuck? Well, Venus is a lot about being open to receive and allowing things. And Leo is a lot about happiness, joy, pleasure, our hearts, fun, right? Which is what a new chapter in life should be about: fun and happiness and joy and things that truly resonate with who we are. And we weren't open to that. We weren't open to our heart, to happiness, to joy, and to those things. And I think that was because especially Pluto retrograded back into Capricorn around that time, because we were still stuck in emergency mode from the past few years, or still stuck in this mindset from the past few years that life has to be serious and rigid and structured and all of this other stuff here that was holding us back. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention. which happened about a month or so later, June, July, somewhere around there here of 2023. Okay, what happened there is that Pluto was back in Capricorn and it made a square to the nodal axis, which included both the south node, which at the time was in Libra, and the north node at the time in the sign of Aries. Okay, what is this about? Now, this is also a challenge. It's two squares, and it's considered a skip step in evolutionary astrology, which is the type of astrology that I do, which can indicate also stuckness, in addition to the Venus retrograde that was going on. So this is another indicator that we're still feeling stuck. Not only that, but this can also mean something else. Skip steps can indicate big choices needing to be made. And Pluto is a lot about change, permanent change. Okay, now not tons of change like we were doing in 2020, but maybe like one big change here that needed to be made here, and needed to be made, I think, to let go of, with it connecting with the south node, just some things that were holding us back or that weren't in touch with our heart, also with the Venus retrograde there, so that we could do more things that it is that we loved and resonated with. So that to me happened around June, July of 2023, made I think one-ish big change to end things that weren't making us happy, so that we could start to be a little bit more happy here in our situation. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment, which now is the following year, May of 2024. Okay, in May of 2024, we had another unique alignment. Jupiter and Uranus came into a conjunction here in the sign of Taurus. So let me write that, May of 2024. Okay. I think that this was meant to be more of a helpful thing here because Jupiter was involved, the planet of gifts and good luck. It's fine in the sign of Taurus. And this was a conjunction. Conjunctions do tend to start new cycles as well. And here it is in Taurus, where we had the solar eclipse a few years earlier about fertility and abundance and kind of these fresh growth and beginnings. And Uranus can indicate it happening suddenly and unexpectedly, or there being something sudden and unexpected to kind of help us on that path, especially in Taurus with money, our skills and talents, our sense of self, maybe even our body as well here too. So in May of 2024, which was just last year, I think we got another boost for the third time? I think it was the third time to move into a new, different and better experience of life unexpectedly, with maybe some help with money, our skills and talents, our confidence, our body, and all of that. Okay. That was going on. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a closer look at the moons of last year that happened here too. I'm going to erase the chart in order to do it because it's getting busy and go in a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to do that. After that occurred, it was then around June of last year, June of 2024, we had a new moon here in the sign of Gemini. Hey, new moons are all about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts here. Gemini is an air sign about our ideas, the twins about multiples, right? So I think we started to get a lot of ideas, especially with Jupiter in the sign at the time, around that time, a lot of ideas about things now we can do next to move into this new, different, and better chapter of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020 and here on our third try. So tons of ideas were coming here that we're excited about. That then leads me to the next month and the next new moon, July of 2024. We had a new moon in the next sign over here, Cancer. Okay, new moons are about new beginnings. Cancer is a lot about what feels more grounded, having a really solid foundation in something. I also think Cancer can be quite shrewd as well. And I think what began to happen in July is that we started to realize, we've got a lot of ideas about things we can do now that we're trying again to get into a different and better experience of life, but that we weren't really sure which idea was the best one that was going to give us the best foundation or the best kind of grounding in order for us to move forward, and that we needed a little bit more time to reflect, or to go inwards. Kind of just a lot about our inwards, to go inwards to kind of figure that out. That then leads me now to the next new moon about a month later, August of 2024, in the next sign over. We had a new moon here in the sign of Leo. New moons are about new beginnings. Leo is a lot about our heart, our happiness, our joy, where Venus went retrograde the year prior. And it connects very well with the North Node, which was also in Aries at the time, about action, about doing things. And Aries to me too can be about doing things in kind of simpler and easier ways as well, that are also more in tune with our instincts and what we're passionate about, with them being fire signs. So I think what we realized in August of last year is that the idea that we needed to pursue the best one to move forward and again into this different and better experience of life is going to be the one that we're the most happy about, the most passionate about, the most excited about. That's the most in touch with our heart and our instincts. And that's the easiest and the simplest and the most fun here in order for us to do, which I thought was good. That then leads me now to the next new moon a month later, around September-ish of 2024, and the next sign over, a new moon in Virgo, while Mercury was also retrograde in the sign of Virgo. Okay. What is that about? Well, Virgo, new moons are about new beginnings. Virgo is a lot about healing and fixing things that may be in the way. And not only that, but Virgo can also be about guilt and shame, especially with Mercury was retrograde there at the time. And I think what happened in September of last year is that we realized, we need to do next what's the most happy and fun for us, but that we had a lot of guilt and shame around that. We had a lot of guilt and shame around doing what was happy, doing what was fun, letting life be easy here. That really needed to be healed, and that we needed to go even more inwards to work through. Okay, that then leads me now to the next new moon, which was the next sign over a month later, roughly. October of 2024 in Libra, and that was an eclipse here on the South Node. Okay, this to me was a bit challenging because it was on the South Node and it's an eclipse here. New moon's sure about new beginnings, but the South Node is really about ending things, so like more of a boost to end old things here. And Libra can be about overthinking, can be about hesitating, can be about people pleasing as well. Too, that was going on. And I think what we realized in October is that not only did we need to heal some guilt and shame around having fun and letting life be easy and pursuing that, but that we also needed to kind of heal and work through a tendency to overthink, to hesitate, or to people please as well here, so that we quit doing that, which was also holding us back from following our heart, right? And being happy, because when you're following your heart, you're not overthinking and you're not caring what other people think. So we needed to work through some of those, which we then started to do. That then leads me to the next new moon a month later, November of 2024 in Scorpio. New moons are about new beginnings. Scorpio is a lot about permanent change and transformation. And I think that what happened in November of last year is that we then were trying to more permanently change and transform in order to embody these new things we wanted to do and the correct approach that's needed to do it, which is happy, right? Happiness, joy, fun, simplicity, and ease. We were more permanently trying to change towards those behaviors and to be more okay, especially after healing and working through some things in the months prior. Okay, that then leads me now to the next new moon a month later in Sagittarius, the next sign over, December of 2024. Okay, while Mercury was also retrograde in Sagittarius. New moons are about new beginnings. Sagittarius, sure, is about trying new things. And it's also about hope and faith here as well, that I think was kind of lacking with Mercury retrograde there too. We were lacking hope and faith that this new approach to life that we're trying, shorter, easier, quicker, happy, fun, is going to work out, especially because it wasn't working yet, right? And it shouldn't, because, things need time. Things need time to really work out, So we were kind of losing hope and faith that this new approach, shorter, easier, quicker, happy, fun, was going to work out, right? Needed to get more hope and faith there, which I think we were trying to do. That then leads me now to the next new moon roughly a month later. I think it also was in December of 2024, but like the last day of December here of 2024. And that was a new moon in Capricorn. New moons are about new beginnings. Capricorn, is really the sign of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, which is what a lot of astrology is based on. And winter is like really the last season when things are kind of dying here as well, which to me also has to do with the past, things from the past, and kind of working through those as well. And maybe still feeling stuck by that, especially with Capricorn being a Saturn ruled sign. So I think what happened here at that new moon in Capricorn in December 2024 is that, we're starting to feel a little more hopeful that ease and fun and happiness is and following that is the right thing to do. And us realizing there's still some things from the past that aren't right, and us trying to fix some things from the past that were keeping us stuck from a happier and more fun approach to get there. Okay, that then leads me now to the next new moon, about a month later now, January 2025, in the next sign over here, Aquarius. New moons are about new beginnings. Aquarius is a lot about the future, but it's a lot about detaching, detaching from things, being an air sign, so that we can see this different vision of the future or get a different perspective, a different way of thinking here. And it's in some ways about letting go. So I think what happened in January of this year is that after trying to fix some more things from the past, from a different approach, shorter, easier, quicker, we realized that it still didn't feel right. It still quite wasn't working. And we needed to detach from what we were doing because we were kind of frustrated by it, and just let go and try to get a different perspective on these actions and on our situation, so that we don't get frustrated, and so that maybe we can figure things out in a different way. That then leads me now to the next new moon that occurred about a month later, February of 2025, right over here, the next sign over in Pisces. New moons are about new beginnings. Pisces is a lot about releasing the past, healing the past. It's also very connected to spirit. And our intuition and our higher mind, being the last sign of the zodiac, being water, all of that. So I think what happened in March of this year, 2025, is that we started to get some new ideas and some new insights from our higher mind, or from spirit, from intuition, right? About our situation, about how to release the past, about how to fix old things, about how to move forward, especially after taking a break and detaching to kind of think in weird ways about it in the month prior. Okay. And I thought those were meant to be helpful. That then leads me now to the next new moon that we had, which was the last one that we had 2 weeks ago here. Was it also in March? Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, March. Here it was. In March of 2025, new moon in Aries, which was also a solar eclipse. Okay? New moons are about new beginnings. Solar eclipse is superpower. That Aries is about action again. And it's about kind of being the first sign of the zodiac, doing new things or doing things in a different way. It's also about more motivation, more courage, more drive, being a Mars ruled sign. So I think what happened just 2 weeks ago at that new moon solar eclipse in Aries is that we started to feel a little more motivated to say, try again, to fix some things from the past, right? To kind of move forward for another time into, what is this, the fourth time now, a new, different, and better experience of life that we'd been trying to get to since 2020, with more motivation, more drive, and now with more insight, right? With more insight too, after the past month, and clarity about what to do and how to do it here as well. Okay, and that then leads me now to this full moon, right, of which this video is for, in the sign of Libra, the opposite sign here. And as I mentioned earlier, Libra to me has a little bit to do with hesitation or people pleasing or overthinking. That's still going on. Some remnants of that, especially from that last eclipse 6 months prior that we had in this sign. There's still some remnants to that are still crowding out our action that we want to take and the motivation that we now have, that we need now to get rid of, so that the action that we wanted to do 2 weeks ago is more sustainable action here, and more efficient action, and will actually work, and so that we can go all in on it instead of kind of hesitating or doing halvesies or things like that, and finally change our life. Which we've been trying to do since 2020, to actually make it happen, which I think there is a huge possibility to do between now and July, roughly, of this year in particular, because a lot of planets are going to change signs, starting to already change signs now and in the next few months. Okay, and that's it, because that's it. I'll just repeat that very briefly, because that was a lot. Basically, we've been trying to get to a new, different, and better chapter of life since 2020. It's been hard for us to do because there's been a lot of things in the way that we've needed to deal with and adjust, like money issues, relationship issues, emotional stuff we've needed to work through here. And because we haven't had our heart in the right place, we haven't been in touch with our heart, and we haven't had our mind in the right place. And those, believe it or not, have fixed themselves. Those have finally fixed themselves over the course of the past few years, so that now we're ready to move into a new, different, and better experience of life if we just stop hesitating and holding back and let ourselves go for it here at this time. Okay, and that's it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hop into more of the specific details about this full moon and the aspects that it's making. And to do that, I'm just going to really quickly place it here on the chart again. We've got the full moon, the moon here in Libra, making that opposition over here to the sun in Aries. Okay, now what that full moon is about, again, just to catch me up, here is about us letting go of, which we talked about at the beginning of this video, hesitation, overthinking, people pleasing, and pains from the past. Okay, what do I want to talk about now in terms of the specifics? Well, what I want to really talk about first is going to be the sun here in Aries. I don't always focus so much on the sun in a full moon horoscope, but I want to mention it this time. And I want to mention it this time because I think it's extra important. It's extra important because we did just have a solar eclipse here in this sign 2 weeks ago, and the North Node was here all last year, and the sun is now here in Aries, its sign of exaltation. So I really want to focus on this just to make sure that we're clear what's really trying to go on here. And what I think is trying to go on here is more of the Aries. Okay, especially with the eclipse just being here. What is Aries about? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's about starting new things or doing things in a different way, right? Not about the past, and about the present and maybe even the future. Moving on. Okay, not only that, Aries is a Mars ruled sign, which means it's about action. It's about doing things, not hesitating, okay, not waiting. It's about taking action now to do the things to move forward. In addition to that, Aries is a fire sign. Fire signs have to do more with our emotions in a lot of ways. Different than a water sign, but still, like, fire signs have to do with passion, right? Passion is a feeling, okay? With passion, with excitement, maybe even I might say more of our happy and more fiery, joyful feelings here that's happening. Again, not overthinking. So that's also what needs to emerge more of. In addition to that, Aries is not about relationships. It's more about ourselves as an individual, things that we like and enjoy as individuals, and focusing more on that. And it's also a sign too, with it again being Mars ruled fire, about going all in on something, just taking the risk, diving in with more courage and more motivation. Okay, which again, I think is what we need to do more of with the solar eclipse, just there in the North Node all last year. So that means that this full moon in Libra is not just about us letting go of hesitation and overthinking and people pleasing and pain from the past for no reason. No, it's us letting go of those things so that we can start anew, doing something different or doing something from the past in a different way that's more exciting, more passionate, more in tune with our heart and our happiness and our joy, and more in tune with just who we are as individuals, and going all in on that with more courage and motivation, right? To make that more of a thing. Okay, so keep that in mind here, and maybe to put it in context of 2020, if you've been watching me since then, to get our way into a new, different, and better chapter of life since 2020 once and for all. Okay, now what I want to do is take a look at the next alignment here that's happening at this full moon here, and that's going to be the fact that this full moon here is opposite Chiron, and that the sun is conjunct it, as you can see right here in this chart. So clearly factoring in, and it's exact as you see it there. Okay, now this is a little bit difficult. Why is it difficult? Well, because Chiron is involved, and Chiron tends to have to do with fears, triggers, and insecurities here. An opposition can be a hard aspect in all of that. So this to me is a bit difficult. What is the difficulty that might be going on here? Well, remember, the moon is in Libra, right? The sun's in Aries, this full moon. It's all about letting go of hesitation, overthinking, people pleasing, pains from the past. And Chiron has a lot to do with fears, triggers, and insecurities, and is going to make that just difficult. Just going to make, this doesn't have to be complicated. It's just going to make that difficult. It's going to make it hard for us to move on, especially in Aries, to move on, to do new things that we want to do, to honor our heart, to honor who we are as individuals, to get started on something else. And it's going to bring the Libra in it. It's going to also make it more difficult too, to stop the thinking, to stop the hesitating, to stop the people pleasing, to tell people no, to get going. It's also going to make that a little bit difficult, and to release the past as well, and bring a lot of triggers still up here about that here too. Why might some of that be? Well, a lot of times Chiron, again, it has to do with fear. There's just fear. It's difficult to do these things because we're just afraid here to take the first leap, to start again, to start anew, to do something we haven't done before, right? Here, not only that, but another thought I'll give you about why are we having difficulty here is because the sun is also involved, conjunct Chiron, and the sun is a lot about our identity, which you can also consider to be your ego here as well. And I think it's also hard for us to to adjust our identity and our ego. Maybe we don't see ourselves as someone who takes action or someone who just does things or someone who can start anew, right? We identify more with the overthinking, the hesitating, the people pleasing and all of that. Or maybe we're identifying more with the pains from the past. We think we can't do something different and better because the past has always been bad. Okay, so there's a lot of that going on here. Do you see? We're trying to let go of overthinking, hesitating, people pleasing, and pain from the past so that we can move into a different and better experience of life. I think we've been trying to get to since 2020. That's more in alignment with our heart and to go all in to make it happen with more courage and motivation. And that's a good thing. But even though that's a good thing, we're finding it difficult to do, difficult to move on, difficult to assert ourselves, difficult to be happy. Why? Because we're afraid. We're afraid to stop the people pleasing and tell people no and cut people out. We're afraid to stop hesitating and actually do things that we've never done before. We're afraid to get out of the head and to start living here and to release the pain of the past. And because we don't see ourselves as this type of person who does new things or does them in a different way, who has life be easier. And we still see ourselves as a people pleaser who has to make everyone else happy, who has had all these issues from the past here that's stuck in the head. That's making it really hard for us to move forward, right? Stuck energy. Okay, that then leads me on to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be the fact that this full moon is square Mars in Cancer, which means that the moon is square it as well as the sun over here. And now this is also a bit difficult. It's a bit difficult because these are two squares, which are hard aspects, and Mars is here in Cancer, a sign it does not like to be in. Okay, what is the difficulty here that might be going on? Well, let's start with the Mars, right? Mars is about action. It rules Aries where the sun is. And here it is in Cancer, a sign it doesn't like to be in, meaning more stuck energy, more difficult acting, especially because Cancer, it's about the past, right? Things about the past here can't move past the past. And in addition to that, Cancer is symbolized by the crab, which tends to move side to side and not hit things straight on and move forward, right? And sometimes the side to side can be a little Libra-y, weighing out information. Should I do this? Should I do that? So this is more stuck energy here that is happening. If you weren't already convinced by the last alignment, still not really able to move on, doing things differently or doing new things or adjusting our life in the way that it is that we want to be, and still feeling stuck or maybe even trapped by old energy or by the past, maybe even feeling sad, because sometimes Cancer can bring on the emotion, sad about the past, victimized by the past here as well. That can be hard and a bit emotional about that. Okay, not only can it bring that, but I'm also getting to that it can bring some frustration here, because the Mars will kind of push the matter, and maybe even some anger as well, especially with like the sun here in Aries, can bring some sort of anger too about like why we're stuck, why we aren't moving forward, and why we aren't doing what needs to be done here in order to move on. Okay, especially because I think it's becoming increasingly clear to us that the only way we're going to get out of this stuff from the past 35 years is if we as individuals do something to fix it ourselves. Here that's going on. Okay, that can be a bit hard. Okay, with ourselves, yeah, maybe with others. So again, to bring it together before I add more onto it, at this full moon in Libra, we're trying to let go of overthinking, hesitating, people pleasing, and pain from the past so that we can move into a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to since 2020 that's more aligned with who we are as individuals, our heart, what makes us happy, and to finally go all in to make it happen here once and for all. And that's a good thing. But even though that's a good thing, we're really struggling still to finally just bite the bullet and to go all in on this new experience of life here that's going on. They're feeling a little stuck, and we're still struggling to do it because we're afraid of taking action, of doing things differently, of taking that first step, maybe of telling people off, of going our own way here, of kind of letting go of our defenses with the thinking here. And because we don't identify as this person who does things in this different way, and we're still overly identifying with these relationships and these things from the past and these issues here that are happening, which is making us feel very triggered as well, triggered and frustrated and angry. Okay. with ourselves, maybe others. Maybe another thought here too, before I move on from the Mars and Cancer, is that Cancer is also a lot about safety, security. So another problem, another reason why we may have difficulty kind of taking action is because we may just not feel safe. We may just not feel safe to do things we want to do, especially if other people aren't going to like it here as well, or we may just feel a little exposed. That's coming on. So it can be all of those things, afraid to fully let go of anything holding us back and take action because it's just uncomfortable. It's not how we see ourselves. We don't identify with this different person, and it feels very unsafe and exposing, which is making us stuck and triggered and mad at ourselves because nothing's changing, right? Nothing's going to change until we change it, ourselves. And because we know that and are still doing nothing. Okay. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be the fact that this full moon here in Libra is making a trine over here to Jupiter in Gemini. Here, this to me is also a little bit of a challenging thing. It's a little bit of a challenging thing because Jupiter is here in Gemini, a sign it doesn't like to be in, and therefore does not function that well in. Here, let me draw that a little better. Okay, what's the difficulty? Well, Jupiter is a very big planet, brings a very big energy to something, and Gemini is a Mercury ruled sign about our thoughts and conversation, so it can bring a lot of that, and sometimes more of something. Doesn't mean better, especially with Jupiter not liking to be here in Gemini. So this can bring more thoughts and more conversations, especially with that full moon in Libra, overthinking, right? Overthinking, more of the relationships, have an opinion, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. The people pleasing here, that's going on, that can throw us into all of that, back into that stuff that we're trying to escape and make that very confusing. Confusing thoughts, confusing conversation, sometimes with the Gemini being about the mind. Here, and maybe even bring on some anxiety, worry, and nervousness, because the air signs, right? You've got the Gemini and the Libra, can be two in the head. And sometimes when you're two in the head, you're not grounded. So you get very anxious and nervous here as well. That's coming on. Okay. So are you seeing here? Trying to let go of hesitation, people pleasing, overthinking, pain of the past, so that we can finally move on into a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to for a while. That's more in tune with ourselves as individuals, our heart, and to go straight for it and to make it happen here. But we're having difficulty doing that because it just feels uncomfortable to take the first step, to move forward, to stop people pleasing or tell people off, to stop the thinking, to go for it, because it's also not how we identify. We don't see ourselves as this person, and we see ourselves as someone who's got pain from the past. And because it doesn't feel safe to do things, and it feels very exposing to put ourselves out there, making us feel really stuck and frustrated and triggered and maybe even upset and angry here, and is then creating a whole bunch of throwing us back into overthinking, is then throwing us back into the overthinking and the issues with the relationships here that you're trying to work things out with, and is bringing on a lot of anxiety and nervousness, which is just making us more confused. Okay, that then leads me now to the next element, and this is really what I want to get to. I kind of wanted to go through all that other stuff fast because that's challenging. Who wants to hear that? And we've been talking about challenges for a long time. It's really the next stuff. That's the big stuff that's important here when it comes to this full moon. And that's going to be with Venus. Now, I want to talk about that because Venus is going direct within an hour after this full moon in Libra. Okay? And that is beautiful. And that's an amazing situation to happen here because Venus is going to be resuming its more natural motion, or appearing to move its more natural motion, which is good. And which I think can bring with it insights to help us move forward. It's also a good thing too, because Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, meaning it loves to be there more than any other sign and functions very well there. And that's a great thing when we're talking about Venus. Okay, not only that, but it's also the ruler of this full moon in Libra, because Libra correlates to the planet of Venus. So this is a beautiful thing. And the fact that it correlates to the actual full moon of Libra is going to make this extra significant, felt more. Maybe not at first, right? Because this full moon is opposite Chiron and square Mars at the end of the day, but definitely as the energy evolves, going to bring it in a very significant manner. The energy is going to turn significantly. That I think helpful, very good, extremely positive. Okay. Starts hard ends good. Okay, what is the very good thing that's going on here? Well, Venus is a planet of receiving and of allowing things to happen more naturally here. That's going on. So something naturally emerging within ourselves. Again, it feels kind of soft and quiet because remember, Venus isn't going to push its way forward. So maybe this is like a soft and quiet inner voice, inner feeling, emerging naturally, spontaneously, I think on its own, without you having to do too terribly much for it. Okay. What is this good thing that's softly emerging within ourselves? Well, it is Pisces. Here, what is Pisces about? Well, Pisces is a water sign. Okay. First and foremost, I want to mention that. What is a water sign? Okay. Not an air sign, not about the thoughts. Okay. Water signs are about our emotions, getting more into our feelings. So what may start to emerge, one of the things, as a result of this frustration that we just talked about that we're feeling, is all of a sudden, naturally, we're going to have some sort of inner prompting that's like, okay, I need to stop with the monkey mind. I need to stop with the overthinking and the overcommunicating and everyone else. And I need to just calm down and tune into my emotions, tune into my feelings. What am I feeling about the situation? Not what do I think I should do? Not what does this person want me to do? Not what makes logical sense to do, but what am I feeling would be best for the situation? Okay, and would be best for me. That would make me feel better and more at ease. Okay, yeah, because I think it's more about that, not about the best for the situation, best for you as an individual. And tuning into that. And not only that, but Pisces can also be about insights, but they're not logical insights because, again, Pisces is a water sign, and water signs to me are more connected to the spiritual realms or intuition or our higher self, things of that sort. So it can also start to bring insights from that as well, right? Which I think is a part of connecting with our emotions. Our emotions are opening up more insights, more intuitions, more downloads from our higher self and the spiritual realms or the universe, that it is that we need as well. That can be very good. Not only that, but Pisces can also bring a sense of calm and peace. We can just start to feel more calm and more peace, especially with the full moon in Libra, right? Libra's about peace. Also us just starting to feel more of a sense of inner peace instead of having to look everywhere for answers. And instead of running our mind, just feeling like quiet, calm, quiet, inner peace, right? And tuning inwards to our emotions and to spirit and getting in that little bubble there. Okay. Very good. Very good. Happening more naturally. Okay. Not only that, but Pisces also has to do with trust and surrender and to those things, to a higher power, to our intuitions, to our own emotions and trusting those here as well. So this can also bring a sense of that, of just trusting more in what our intuition, our emotions are telling us, especially over our logical mind. Not only that, but Pisces too can have to do with healing, maybe physically, but especially the past, healing old things, forgiving ourselves for that. So we can also start to feel more healed. Not only that, but Pisces also has to do with rest. And I think feeling more rested and rejuvenated, especially after it went retrograde, they're feeling more rested, more rejuvenated. And when you feel more rested and more rejuvenated, you feel more ready to act in an easier way. Okay. So I think that that's happening very good. To bring that together before I add some more things at this full moon in Libra, we're trying to let go of overthinking, hesitation, people pleasing, and pains of the past so that we can finally move forward into a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020. That's more in alignment with our identity, more in alignment with our heart, and actually going to work this time to go all in on that with more courage and motivation. And that's a great thing. But even though that's a great thing, it's a little bit hard for us to do here because we're still a little afraid to take that first step and to cut some people off and to move forward. And because it's not how we're used to being and identifying and seeing ourselves, right? We still see ourselves as stuck in the past and not the new person. And because it just feels unsafe and a little exposing to take these steps, especially if other people may or may not like them, which is making us feel very frustrated, stuck, still angry, maybe at ourselves and others, and anxious and nervous, and have just confusing thoughts and conversations that can just spiral down and be very challenging. But from that challenging space, I think something naturally and spontaneously within each of ourselves all of a sudden starts to realize, hey, I got to quit this. The overthinking not working, the fear not working, all of that not working. The anger or the disagreements not working. I have to calm myself and my mind, and I have to get in touch with my emotions, and I have to go inwards and create a peaceful space for me to do that. And we do that and listen to our emotions, and then we start to get insights from our higher selves or spirit or universe or the divine here about our situation and about how we can maneuver it here and about how we can release the past and heal here. And we start to trust ourselves and spirit more and more in order to make that happen. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be back to Venus, the star. Really, she's the star here of this full moon in Libra, here making a conjunction here to Saturn and Pisces at the same time. Here you can see it. What is this? A degree apart. Okay, what is this about? Now, in some ways, you could interpret this as being challenging. And a lot of times I do interpret Saturn that way, but I actually want to see this as more constructive this time, and very positive. I want to see it more constructive because Venus here is in such a beautiful place, direct, and it's sign of exaltation, and it did go retrograde over Saturn. So I want to consider this more of a helpful thing here. So I'm going to give it more of that positive spin on it. What is it that could be? Well, maybe I'll start here by saying this. Saturn can bring a sense of stuckness, right? Typically how I interpret that. But even though Saturn can bring a sense of stuckness, right? And in Pisces, maybe I'll say in connecting with Venus, not all of the answers that we need, right? We're getting a lot of clarity, a lot of answers. We're tuning into our emotions. We're not getting all of the answers that we need because sometimes Saturn can kind of block things, okay? But even though this can block us from maybe getting all of the answers that we're looking for, I think this is bringing something else. Saturn, when positive, can bring commitment and determination. And I think that's emerging more naturally with Venus nearby and more easily. And a commitment and determination with the Pisces, right? Pisces is about surrender, to trust the process, to not need all the answers up front, to not need a 10-step plan on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, because that's going to throw us back into the mind, but to be okay with like one step is all you need, or 2 steps, right? To be okay with like knowing 1 step and then like waiting for the next, and to trust that we're going to have that. And that we're going to be okay, and that's going to be there, and to have faith that more of the answers are going to come with each step that we take. Okay. Not only that, but again, I said Saturn's about determination and commitment, and Pisces, again, it has to do with rest. And I'm going to interpret it as feeling rested and feeling more motivated, starting to feel more motivated, especially with the Venus, to kind of move forward and do things now. Maybe not do a whole bunch all at once. Like, Pisces is still a little bit of a sleepy sign, but again, 1 step, like 1 step is all you need. 1 step, and then another step, and then another step. That's all you need. It's us starting to feel, especially with Pisces being a water sign, feel rested or feel better, or starting to feel rejuvenated of like, yeah, 1 step is all I need. And I'm getting answers. I don't have all the answers, but 1 step is what I need. And I'm feeling motivated to do it. I'm feeling more determined to do it. I'm feeling like I can do it. One answer is good. I'm going to make that happen. This is easy. There's like this sense of like feeling more rejuvenated or more vital and more able to move forward. And sometimes it's easier to move forward when you just have 1 step. Sometimes when someone tells you, all right, you got to do this, this, and this, and you got to do 10 and 15 things, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not motivated. There's too many things to do. But sometimes when you realize, okay, I've just got 1 or 2 steps that I know how to take, that I've gotten clarity on. I don't know what's next, but 1 or 2 steps, that's all I need. It feels easier. Like, oh, good, it's 1 or 2, not like 15 things. So I think that there's a sense of that starting to come together here. So do you see? Before I add another thing on, we're trying to let go of hesitation, overthinking, people pleasing, pain from the past, so that we can move forward into a different and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020. That's more in alignment with our identity and our heart and what makes us happy, and actually do it and make it happen more fully this time with more courage and motivation, which is very good. But even though that's what we're trying to do, we're still a little stuck because it's scary to take that first step, especially if we haven't been taking it in a long time, and to tell people off, that's scary, and because we don't identify as this type of person who does things, since we still see ourselves as someone who's stuck in the past, and because it doesn't feel safe to do things, right? And feels very exposing, making us feel stuck and angry, because I think we're realizing better now and that we have to do something, and frustrated and maybe get back into overthinking and frustration with other people and anxiety and all of that. But in the midst of this frustration and anger and anxiety that we're feeling, I think all of a sudden, naturally within ourselves, we're just naturally going to be drawn to calm down, calm our mind, calm our anxiety, calm communication, whatever's going on with other people, and tune inwards instead of outwards. Tune inwards to ourself. No external validation, internal validation, and to listen to our emotions. And that's going to start to give us answers and give us insights here about our life and how to get unstuck and how to move forward here and how to release the past that's going on. It's not going to give us all the answers. There's still a lot of answers we're not going to have, but it's going to give us 1 or 2 answers about what our next best step or 2 is about our situation. And instead of that feeling frustrating, that's going to make us feel more motivated and more rejuvenated and more able to achieve what needs to be done, more able to do what needs to be done instead of the whole enchilada at once here, and make us feel more committed and motivated in order to actually act on those things here. Okay. The next thing I want to note here, and maybe I should have mentioned it in the past with Saturn, but it came to me while I was repeating that decisions is actually kind of important. So glad I remembered. Saturn can also have a lot to do with decisions here too. And so this can also, and so are full moons, right? Full moons are a function of an opposition, hard to do opposite things at once. So this can also as well compel us to make decisions here, decisions to act on our intuition, Pisces, on our instincts with some of the Aries stuff, on some of these little messages that we're getting from spirit to move forward or to do things differently here in order to adjust our life. So some of you, once you get to this clear place, you got to get there first, might then make important decisions here that are really going to be helpful for you. And I think helpful for you as well with the North Node involved, because not only is Venus conjunct Saturn, now we'll move on to that, it's also conjunct the North Node too. And the North Node to me can be helpful because it's a lot about our purpose and our destiny at this time in our lives that's meant to help us move forward here. So I think that these insights and this feeling of peace and calm that we're getting, and these decisions that we're making, especially if they're coming from that peaceful internal place, is going to be very positive to help us get unstuck and to move towards our future or our destiny, or to adjust things, right? To get out of the past, right? Pisces is about the past, to get out of the past and or readjust the past or fix the past in a way that's actually going to work here at this time, that I think is finally coming together and starting to register with us. Okay. So do you see? And I've got one more cluster of alignments I want to mention. They're all related. But do you see? We're trying to overcome let go of overthinking, hesitating, people pleasing, and pain from the past, so that we can finally move forward into a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to since 2020. That's more in alignment with our identity and our heart and our happiness, and actually do it this time for realsies. And that's very good. But even though that's very good, we're having a little bit of difficulty still doing that. And we're having a little bit of difficulty doing that because it's scary. It's scary to do it and to move forward and to set boundaries with people, and because it's just not how we see ourselves. As someone who does action, we still kind of see ourselves stuck in the past and all this pain, and because it just feels unsafe and a little exposing to kind of draw a line in the sand like that and do these things that it is that we want to do, which is making us feel stuck and triggered and frustrated and maybe even angry, and throwing us back into disagreements with other people, or maybe even disagreements with other people, or maybe even overthinking, anxiety, nervousness, confusion. That's very hard. But from this difficulty, all of a sudden, naturally within ourselves, we start to just realize we need to be calm, remain calm, and not be so anxious here, and to look inwards and to focus on ourselves and what our soul is telling us, not what other people is, not what our mind is telling us, but what our emotions and our own self feels here is going on. And that then snaps things into place. That then finally gives us a lot of insights from spirit, from a higher realm about our life, which could include relationships and money, and how to adjust those here for the better here. And it doesn't give us all the answers. Okay. Maybe I should know that. It gives us some answers. It doesn't give us all the answers, but it gives us just enough. It gives us just the right amount of answers, I think, that we need so that we're not overburdened and overstressed, but so that we know what to do next. And not only does it give us just the right answers that we need, but we begin to have more trust in ourselves and in our situation to move forward, and that we can do it, and that we're going to get all the answers that we need later. And we start to make some very important decisions, perhaps with relationships and money, based on these intuitions, these few intuitions that we're getting, that are going to be very positive to help us release the past. And we're feeling more capable and more motivated and more able to do these things and these decisions and to handle whatever may come as a result. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention here, the last ones, Uranus. Uranus is here in the sign of Taurus, and it's making a trine to the south node here in Virgo and a sextile to the north node here in Pisces, which is conjunct Saturn and Venus that we were just talking about. Excuse me. I want to like this because we've got the sextiles here to the north node, Venus and Saturn, and that good alignment we were just talking about. Okay, so I'm going to interpret this positively. What is that? Uranus is about the sudden and unexpected. Okay, this could be about an insight you get in your mind, because clearly there's some of that going on, but I think could also be about something we do in the physical, because full moons do tend to push more external events in our lives here. So it could be about that as well. That could occur that either we do or someone else does, of that sort. And I think that this is meant to be a good thing unexpectedly, especially as a result of a decision that maybe we just made here. A good thing to really help us kind of let go of some things from the past. The South Node has to do with the past that are keeping us stuck in maybe overwork or, overwork with the Virgo. You'll get some of that. Perfectionism, things of that sort. And that also is going to help us to move forward here and to do it in a physical way. I think that's really what I wanted to pull out about the Uranus and the South Node. Uranus is in Taurus, it's an earth sign. The South Node is in Virgo, also an earth sign. It's really going to start to help us physically, not just in our mind, move out of old things, but in a tangible way in our lives, to start to see the tangible details of our life start to shift here in a much better way that it is here that's going on. Now, is it going to happen all at once? I'm of the opinion, no, not that this isn't good, right? Not this isn't good, not that this can't indicate things happening more smoothly here. I don't think it's going to happen all at once. I think it's going to take a few more months till about July of this year, 2025. I think the reason why it's going to take until about then is because we've got planets. Some planets are about to change signs. Neptune just did, but Saturn is, and Uranus is going to change signs. And then we need Jupiter also to change signs into Cancer, its sign of exaltation. So I think that it's going to take a little bit more time for that. Also too, because, Saturn is right in Pisces, and Pisces is still about old things, and the South Node's there. So, we still need planets to kind of come out of post-retrograde shadow. So I don't think that this is like the unexpected decisions and actions that we take all of a sudden in the next 2 weeks, like turning our life around here. But I think it's the unexpected actions and decisions that we take starting to gradually turn our life around over the course of the next few months, until about July of this year in very positive ways, especially to another thought, right? Remember I said part of the interpretation, we're not getting all the answers we need. We're just getting one step ahead. So one or two steps ahead. So this is like one or two of the answers that we need ahead. It's not the whole enchilada either. Those have to come. And another thought too, the next new moon, 2 weeks from now, is in Taurus. Taurus is also a little bit of a slower. So it's an earth sign. Good news about physical realities changing. But it's also a little bit slower. So this is not, everything turning around immediately in the next 2 weeks. This is us starting that gradual process of everything turning around in the next few months, until about July. And I think that's actually a better thing. Maybe I want to say that here, that it's not going to happen all at once, because sometimes when it happens all at once, you burn yourself out. It happens too fast. Not only do you burn yourself out, but you're not prepared for the change that comes. Sometimes when things happen too fast, you scare yourself. here. And not only that, but sometimes when things happen too fast, you don't have to go inwards to trust yourself. And that's a huge part of the energy. A huge part of the energy is stop looking outside to other people. Stop external validation. Stop it. Stop looking at relationships and people pleasing and what they're doing and overthinking, and start looking inwards. What are you feeling here? And when things go slower, it forces you to constantly check in emotionally with what you're feeling here for the answers too. So I think that's another reason why that's going to occur, which has really been the whole point. That like a big thing that's been missing the past few years. A big thing that's been missing the past few years while we've been stuck is that we haven't been looking inward. So we got to keep checking in. Here. That's why that needs to happen. Okay. Now I want to say a few things here before I repeat and move on. Again, I do think a lot of this is going to happen naturally, especially this good stuff with Venus here towards the end of the energy, right? The beginning looks a challenge, but the end looks good. I do think it's going to happen naturally because Venus is that like still small voice inside. But if it doesn't happen naturally, or if you're still in that early part of the full moon, that's a little frustrating. I'm going to give you some advice if you need it. And the advice is to look inwards, right? Is to look inwards and to honor your emotions. With the Venus direct in Pisces into, Mars and Cancer is at the point of a T-square between the moon and the sun, the full moon here as well. And Cancer is also a water sign about looking in. So if you're feeling really frustrated and really uncertain about your experience and overwhelmed and anxious and all of that, then my advice for you is to stop what you're doing, get in a calm place, honor your emotions, and do something that makes you feel and work through your emotions, here in healthy ways here. And that helps you to go inwards to really honor that or connect with your emotions, your spirit, or a higher power, and to, calm yourself out of the anxiety and frustration, because that's the key to unlocking these higher insights that it is that you need. Okay. And that's it, because that's it. I'm now going to repeat all of that here one last time without the jargon before we move on. So let me do that. What I think is going on here at this full moon in Libra is that we're really trying to let go of overthinking, hesitating, people pleasing, and pain from the past so that we can move forward into a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to since 2020. That's more in alignment with our identity, our heart, and our soul, and actually do it this time with more courage and motivation. And that's a very good thing. But even though that's what we're trying to do, we're still, after all these years, struggling to make that happen. And we're still struggling to make that happen because we're afraid. We're afraid to kind of take that first step. Especially because it's not the way we've been doing things before or who we've always been. And we don't identify with this new step. We still kind of see ourselves as like the person from the past who's been stuck. Not only is it hard because we're a little afraid, we don't identify with this new experience, but also because it doesn't feel safe and we feel a little exposed, especially after all we've been through, and especially if we're cutting ties with people and doing our own thing here. That's hard, making us feel very frustrated and making us feel maybe even angry, and maybe even disagreements with relationships and weird conversations with relationships, and a lot of thoughts and overwhelm and anxiety. But from this confusion and this anxiety and anger and weird discussions with relationships here, I think we all of a sudden naturally and instinctually within ourselves start to realize here that we need to stop with all that and calm ourselves and go inwards and just listen to our emotions, not other people, not what they say, not what they feel, just ourselves inwards, what we're feeling, what we think is best for ourselves here. And us doing that then works significantly, or I think in a significant way, to give us some important insights that we need here about our situation and anything that's keeping us stuck, and about how to overcome it. Which is very good. But even though it's very good, we're not getting all the insights. Keep that in mind. We're not getting all the insights. We're not getting a 20-step plan for how to maneuver it. We're only getting the next step or two. We're only getting the next step or two about our situation and how to move forward. And that's actually a good thing, because that's making us feel more motivated and less discouraged and more capable of doing what needs to be done. And not only that, but it's we're also feeling more determined and more committed and more able and more rejuvenated to actually do these things that's going on. And because we're feeling more calm and we're getting these insights, just the right amount here, that are what we need, and we're feeling more well rested, we then feel able to make a decision. Important decisions, which I need to note could involve relationships and money, on how to adjust those to be different and better for our situation. And we then may suddenly and unexpectedly, or the people we're connecting with, take action on that decision, which will then start a gradual process, I think, from now until July of this year to finally end old things that have been keeping us stuck since 2020 and move finally into this different and better experience of life and make it more solid. And I do think a lot of that's going to happen naturally because it's about dang time. But if it doesn't happen naturally, I'm going to give you some advice, especially if you're in the early uncomfortable phases of this full moon. And that advice is to calm yourself. If there's any anxiety or disagreement or argument or frustration or any fear, calm yourself. Get in a calm, quiet space and do things that honor your emotions and help you feel and get in touch with your emotions here. That's going on and nurture your emotions, because that's what's going to unlock some of these answers and insights that you need, and the motivation and the drive to make decisions and to start to make positive changes in your life for the better. Okay, and that's it. Okay. Because that's it, I'm now just going to erase the chart and then just say a few other things about this energy in my own words. Well, everything was in my own words, but in a more conversational way. Because sometimes I think that hearing similar things told differently can give you a different perspective on it. Okay. So I think what I want to do first here really quickly is to just give an overview of this energy. And what I think is going on at this full moon in Libra is that we're realizing here, and I don't even think it's a conscious realization. I feel like it's more visceral, more emotional, more in our bodies and in our instincts. We're realizing how much we have given our power away to external sources in our life and have been looking for external validation about what we're doing. Not only at this full moon in Libra are we realizing that just how much we've given our power away to external sources, but we also finally take our power back and go inwards to look for validation from an internal source here as well, which is very, very good, and then finally starts to snap everything into place and to give us significant insights or action steps that we need to move forward, even though we don't have all of them yet fully there. Okay, that's going on. So that to me is the most important thing here. And you can kind of see it in the horoscope as well that I just said. We kind of start out here with the people pleasing, the hesitating, the overthinking here, that's going on. And then that kind of gets worse. There's a moment where it gets worse. And then all of a sudden, out of all of this intense overthinking, people pleasing, hesitating, we get quiet. Did you see that? Especially when Venus goes direct in Pisces, we get quiet and we finally start to go inward to our emotions here that goes on. So that to me, even though there's a lot of other things I'm going to talk about too, about this full moon, that to me is the core of this full moon really, and what it's meant to be about here in particular. Now, what exactly do I mean by external, looking to external sources for validation? And what do I mean by looking to internal sources of validation? Maybe let's get clear on that. Okay, looking to external sources for answers or validation means basically looking for anything external to you, outside of you, that's not yourself, for answers, for guidance, for cues on who to be, on how to live your life, and on what to do. That's what external validation is. And that can be a lot of things. In many ways, it is other people. People are involved. And this is a full moon in Libra that we're talking about, which is a lot about relationships. Pluto too is in Aquarius, which can be people related, having to do with the collective. So in some ways, our external validation has been us looking at other people on cues for them, how we should act and how we should behave and how we should live our life and what's right and what's wrong. And this could be cues from people actually in our lives and cues just from collective, from society overall. Not only can that be external validation and looking for answers from an external source to kind of rubber stamp our life, but it can also come in other ways too. If it's not via relationships or society, external validation can also come too by looking for answers outside of ourselves, say in in stuff you read online or books you read or anything that's just not you, that's someone else's opinion, that's someone else's thoughts or feelings and not your own. That's external validation there, and looking for external sources to give you safety or to give you answers about how you should act and behave. And internal validation, to be clear on that, is you getting validation, you getting answers from inside yourself, from your own feelings, from your own life experience, from your own values and morals and beliefs and things that you have here that's going on. Okay, so that's the shift that is trying to happen here at this full moon in Libra. Stop looking at things outside of yourself, which can also include the news, stock market. Stop looking at it. Stop looking at what other people's doing. Stop looking at what society's doing, and stop basing your life's worth and what you should do with your life off of that, and start looking at yourself and your own opinions, your own beliefs, your own ideas, your own feelings, your own thoughts, and what they're trying to tell you here, and honor more of that. Okay, that's going on. That is what is trying to happen here at this full moon in Libra. And I think for many people has the chance to actually happen here more spontaneously and more naturally here at this time. That's going to go on. Okay. Not only, that, and maybe to use the Libra metaphor really quickly, right? Libra is about the scales. I know I've talked a lot about getting rid of the Libra, right? Not doing the Libra, but if we want to talk about doing the Libra in a more healthy way or purified way, we have to rebalance the scales here, because I think that over the course of a long time, and I'm going to get more into that, the scales have been tipped way towards external validation, other people, society, what they're doing, other people's thoughts, other things that I'm reading, instead of what's inside ourselves. And we need to rebalance the scales here, where what we feel and what's going on inside us either has just as much or more weight than everyone else's opinions and everything else going on here outside of us here too. And not only do I want to note that, but I also want to note as well that, again, this is what is going to give us the answers that we might need, or the next action steps that it is that we might need about our lives in order to move forward. It is that going inwards that's going to do it. There is no way around that. There is no other way to get any answers that you need about how to move forward. It's going inwards. And not only is that going to be what's going to give you the answers that you need, the inward validation here, but those answers are actually going to be the right answers, and they're going to be the answers that are going to work here to actually change your life that you've been trying to do since 2020 for the better, which I think has a good chance of happening by July of this year. So keep that in mind. And I think that some of the reasons, I think there's maybe some others too, but I think a big reason, maybe I'll say that, a big reason why we've been stuck for so long over the course of the past few years is because we've been too busy looking outside ourselves for answers, looking outside ourselves for what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do, what's right and wrong, instead of looking in. And that has led us astray, because when you look outside yourself for answers, you're looking at what works for someone else, what they did, but not what works for you and your unique traits and abilities that you have here. And it may not be what's truly meant for you as well. So it's the looking inwards that really, I think, has been needed all along, that we've been doing, and that the rest, if you've been watching my horoscopes from the past few months, we've been a lot of resting. That's what the resting has been all about. The resting has been about isolating yourself from all of these external voices and all these other things in your life that don't have your best interest in mind, so that you can finally hear your own self think and your own self feel things and your own self start to believe things and give you answers that it is that you need here at this time. Okay. So that's really been why a lot of these things have happened and have now led to this point that's going to move forward. And sure, there's more answers that we need that we don't have. That was also a part of the horoscope here as well. But remember, those answers will come as long as you stay connected to your inner source, to your inner self. Those will come, and we need to stay connected to that. And I think Spirit's going to make sure of that. Spirit wants us to really stay connected to that here, and to not lose that and fall back into external validation, which can be easy to do when you have all the answers up front here. So Please do keep that in mind. A huge thing. You have to stop looking outside yourself to what everyone else says is right or wrong. And you have to start looking inside to what you think. What do you think is right or wrong? What do you think you should do with your life? Not the way you've been conditioned to think, and start living from there, from that place, which is going to turn everything around. Maybe one of the things that I want to say that's just coming to me first here is that this message that I'm giving you here in this full moon in Libra is very similar to a message that I did give you 6 months ago. 6 months ago for that last new moon that was in the sign of Libra last October, I believe, September, October of 2024, which was also a solar eclipse. Okay, the messages are very similar. Okay, why might that be? Well, one of the reasons is because this is kind of the way like the new moons and the full moons work. New moons and full moons in the same sign usually have related themes here that they're working through. So that's part of it, of why they might be related and why it might be similar. Another reason why that could be, if you remember that horoscope that I did back then, is because we're just not finished with the theme. You know, we just not finished with the theme, or we weren't able to fully do what needed to be done the first time around. So now we kind of get a similar message the second time around here as well. So that's another thought. This is related to that new moon solar eclipse in Libra last October. They have very similar messages, similar themes. And the reason why I think that might be is because that's sometimes how astrology works. But especially because I think we didn't fully do this the first time around. We didn't fully do this the first time. We started to a little bit the first time around, but not fully. What did we start to do a little bit, but not fully? The Libra stuff, right? That's what we're talking about. The new moon and the full moon in Libra, which is about the letting go of the hesitation, the overthinking, the people pleasing, and the pain of the past. Okay. Right? We started to do it in October of last year and realized that's what needed to happen, but clearly we didn't fully do it. Okay. Which is why now we get another one saying, for real this time, stop with that. Stop with all these things that are going on. Okay. Why might that be the case here? You know, because right, even though this happens with new moons and full moons in astrology, they're not always, the messages aren't always so identical. Like, I feel like this message is actually very similar to that one. So you might want to go back and watch that video too, from last year. They're not always this identical. And I think another reason why they're this identical and why we didn't, right, why we kind of needed this second message again, a second time, is almost the whole point of the full moon itself, right? A big message of this full moon in Libra, which was also the last one too, is like we have to stop thinking and overthinking, and we have to get out of the head, right? Okay. And I think what happened at the last Libra, it was a new moon solar eclipse in Libra in October, okay, of last year, is that we intellectually started to get it. We intellectually started to understand, okay, I need to stop overthinking, right? We logically thought that we needed to stop thinking too much, right? And we logically thought, oh, I need to stop people pleasing. And we logically thought, oh, I need to stop, with this pain of the past, and I need to stop hesitating. We logically thought it, okay? But what was missing that we didn't have, that now we need this second Libra moon in, is to feel it, because they're two different things. You can think something, but then not feel it. And we really need both in order to create successful action of some sort here as well. Okay. So do you see that? It's very different to know intellectually that I need to stop thinking, okay, because I'm thinking too much. It's a very different thing to feel, oh, this thinking's too much. My heart needs attention. My emotions need attention, and to actually honor those. Okay. Very similar. They're similar, but they're very different. And I think that that's been a huge message of the getting in the heart and the feelings of the past 6 months since then, and also of the past 2 years, I might say. I think it's been important in the past 6 months. Maybe I'll start there. If you've been watching my horoscopes here, especially since then, the new moon in Scorpio stands out to me. Even the new moon, maybe the new moon in Sag, but especially the new moon in Aquarius and Pisces that we've had over the last 6 months. A lot of those weren't about thinking. new moon in Aquarius that we had recently 2 or 3 months ago was like, let go, stop trying to analyze your situation. The new moon in Pisces was like, rest, feel, like, be at ease, right? And a lot of times resting and being at ease gets you into your feelings, so the past few months, a lot of the new moons and full moons that we've been talking about has been a lot about resting and feeling, which we weren't doing before to a great extent. Okay. Not only that, but if we want to now zoom out and take an even larger look at, say, like the past 2 years or so, or 3 years or whatever. I think it's been the past 2 years. We've also had Venus go retrograde in Leo, which was 2023, May-ish, 2023. And then we had Mars go retrograde in Leo at the end of last year, around November of 2024, right? And Leo is not a water sign per se, right? It just isn't. It's not a water sign that we typically think of as having to do with like our emotions, but Leo is a fire sign. Fire signs have to do with passion and excitement. Leo has to do with our heart and our happiness and joy, and that is an emotion. Okay, maybe a different kind of emotion than a water sign, but it is still an emotion here that's going on. And with these planets, especially personal planets being retrograde here and Pluto being opposite that sign, we haven't fully tapped into that in the way that it is that we really need to, So I think it's been a long journey that maybe to put that together, it's been a long journey over the past 2 years, since 2023, that the past 6 months have been a really intense focus of us finally learning and finally getting together, finally learning, like, stop thinking things and start feeling things, stop, being in the head and start getting more in your heart and in your emotions here. That's going on, right? Do you see in the past 6 months really ramped up the intensity of like, gotta get it out of the head, out of what you think you should do, even out of external validation into the feelings. Okay. Not only do I want to note that, but I also want to note as well that theme of honoring our emotions and our own heart has been a huge part of the reason of why, and us not doing that, right? Us being unable to do that has been a huge part of the reason of why we've been stuck for so long. And especially since 2023 to now, what is that, like the past 2 or 3 years of why we've been stuck and why we've been unable to move forward. Okay. Especially with those retrogrades, it's been because we haven't been honoring our emotions and we haven't been looking inwards. Okay. That's been a part of it. Right. There's been some other things too. If you listen to the earlier part of my horoscope, there's been some other things too. Okay. When it's been a lot of like money issues and there's been maybe some trauma and there's been a lot of changes going on. Like there's been some other issues and some practical matters and things like that. Okay. There has been other issues that have been going on, but this has also been a very significant one that has been keeping us stuck, right? That if we were just honoring, it'd be easier for us to move forward here. That really took us the time, okay, to do. Why is this such a significant issue that took us like 3 years in order to really understand and to fix and to work through and all of that? Well, I think the last 35 years, right, which are the years, especially if you watch the beginning, that we've been trying to escape, okay, and get out of, were a big part of Pluto and Capricorn, because that is where the Pluto and Saturn conjunction came exact in 2020. And Capricorn is the opposite of Cancer, which ignores the emotions. Capricorn is going to ignore the emotions, and Pluto, I think, can bring too much in a direction that is unhealthy and imbalanced. And I think that for the past 35 years before 2020, that was what was going on. We were taught, whether we taught ourselves or society taught us, it doesn't matter. We were taught that the way to be a successful person, because Capricorn's a lot about success, is to hide your emotions. Emotions make you weak. Emotions make you a baby or young or whiny or whatever, That's what we were taught. And that the way to succeed is to hide your emotions and to only focus on external validation, right? External measures of success, especially with Capricorn being the highest part of the chart here, that's seen very bright where the noontime sun is here as well. So we were taught that don't go inwards. Don't focus on your emotions. That makes you a baby. That makes you weak. focus on everyone else and what the world wants, and on being successful, and on putting your emotions behind you, and doing all this other stuff that the world thinks you should do in order to be a certain way, in order to get money. Sometimes the Capricorn can be that way, or to get the reputation here that it is that you want. And that's what we're trying to escape, right? Because that's where the Pluto-Saturn conjunction is. That's what we're trying to escape. That's what created either 35 years we didn't like, or that's what we've outgrown here. We either didn't like the past 35 years because that's what we had to do. We had to ignore our emotions just to get by here, or we outgrew the past 35 years because we transcended beyond that. We realized that there's another way of being here, that where we can be emotional but not be, right? Where we can be emotional but still be respected, but still be valued here. We've kind of transcended beyond that here too. So right? That's what we started to realize, but it was right that we needed to learn how to embody. So do you understand here? This is a huge lesson of getting in touch with the emotions and getting in touch with internal validation, not external validation, what the world thinks, what everyone else thinks, which sometimes Libra can do too, right? Libra's a lot about relationships. Other people got to look pretty for other people, right? That's a Libra stereotype. The Libra and Capricorn, external appearances. We got to get rid of that here, okay? We got to go inward. And it's taken us a while to do, but we're now doing it, and it's extremely important because us ignoring our inner world and ignoring our emotions has caused us to create a lot of situations that we didn't like. That's what we're escaping. Okay, here. Okay. And us being in tune with our emotions is going to help us move forward. Do you see here? Okay. Now, is this always the case? Maybe I should say that. Is it always the case that like every new experience in life, we have to honor our emotions in, and all of that? I mean, no, I don't think so. I think that honoring your emotions does help to make a new experience better and enjoyable. But I think too, this is just the chapter of history that we're in. Maybe that's another way to put it, because there have been other times, when Pluto's been in the opposite sign in Cancer, and when it's made conjunctions with Saturn elsewhere, right? Like the last conjunction it made with Saturn was in Libra. When was that? 83? Pluto made a conjunction with Saturn in Libra around then. So it's like, no, it's not always the case that a new and better experience in life is going to require us to honor our emotions per se. It's just that this one does in particular, because this is where the world is. This is the time of history that we're in. We're living in a society that has Pluto and Capricorn that values external success and validation and money and reputation and status over the internal world. And there will be other times when that will be different. There will be other times in the history of the world when we're valuing too much emotions, when we're valuing too much, sensitivities, and when we need to toughen up and we need to get out there and do work. It's just not right now. It's just not what this time is really all about with that going on there. So I guess there's some thoughts when it comes to that as well. This is, maybe to repeat, I like to do that. Just part of my thing here. This full moon in Libra, which this video is for, back to that, is very similar to the theme we talked about 6 months ago at the new moon solar eclipse in Libra in October of 2024, because they're both about releasing overthinking, hesitation, people pleasing, all of that. Okay. The only difference between now and then is that the first new moon, it was a thought. We started to think and realize intellectually that we needed to stop those things. And now at this moon, we're embodying it. We're feeling it. We're embodying it. We're living it. We're living it. The no overthinking, which in essence is action, right? We're living the no hesitation, which is trusting ourselves, right? We're actually living it and embodying it, and we're getting it emotionally, which is the key now here that it is that we're missing. And not only that, but this key now that we have at this full moon in Libra, where we're embodying more natural action without the overthinking and the hesitation, the people pleasing, and all that, is what's going to unlock the past few years, especially 3 years in particular, of us being stuck. It's going to unlock that, because that's part of the reason, one of the main reasons why we've been stuck the past few years is because we haven't been honoring our emotions and our heart and what makes us happy in our inner world. And we've been doing too much what other people want us to do. and what the world wants us to do and been stepping those down, which has created a bunch of situations that we didn't like, that we needed to get out of, which is just a thing now that has to do with our time of history, and the experience that we all just signed up for here now. Here, that is the reason why that's needed. And I like to think that honoring your emotions also makes a new chapter of life better. Okay, what else? Okay. Why, I don't know. Did I make this clear or not? It's hard to tell when I'm just talking to a camera here. But why, I don't know if some of you are still like, I don't understand. Why would the past 35 years with the Pluto, Saturn, and Capricorn have been bad if we were ignoring our emotions and if we were just chasing status and success? Why would that be bad? Well, because status and success may not be what's truly meaningful to you, and would make you get in things that you didn't want to be in, right? So I hope you're making that connection there. Okay. Another thought that I want to note too, that's going on here at this full moon in Libra is, and that I talked about a little bit with the aspects here, is it's not about getting all the answers, right? It's not about getting every single answer that you need to help you finally turn your life around from now into July. And it's not you getting like a 10-step plan on what that is. All this full moon in Libra is about you getting the next step or two, maybe we'll say two with Jupiter and Gemini, the next step or two about what to do to finally end an old chapter of life and move forward into a different one. That's all it is. One or two steps ahead. It's not the whole enchilada. Okay, that's what's going on here. Another thing that I want to note as well is that is a good thing. Okay, that is a good thing. And I think that's a great thing. And that's the way it's meant to be. I did mention it briefly earlier, but I'm going to focus on it here. Why is that a good thing? Well, for one, if we had all the answers now, the whole steps about how to change our life from now until July or whatever that's going on, it may be too many steps and it may overwhelm us. And then we'll be like, oh, well, why even try? 15 steps. I'm not doing that. That's too many. Now I'm confused. Now I'm overwhelmed if we got all the steps. Not only that, I do think that there is a chance for something unexpected to happen as well when Uranus enters Gemini. When is that? May, June here as well. So I think another reason why we don't have all the steps here too is because maybe the universe wants to surprise us here, and because maybe if we knew what the surprise is now, maybe we wouldn't like it. Sometimes you don't know you're going to like something until you try it, until it happens. So the reason why we don't have all the answers, a 500-step plan, is not only because too much at once might overwhelm us here, but also because, I think the Spirit wants us to be surprised and doesn't want us to push away the surprise ahead of time, without us actually experiencing what it is. Okay, another thought here too on why we don't have all the steps as well is because that's going to force us to take our time, to pace ourselves, which is what we're going to talk about a lot at the new moon in Taurus 2 weeks from now, which is a fixed earth sign, slower. It's going to force us to pace ourselves and to slow down. Why is that important? Because when you slow down, you do things more correctly. When you're going fast, sometimes you're rushing and you're breaking things here. And not only that, when you go too fast, you burn out and then you can't finish. So it's also, we're not getting all the answers right ahead here because Spirit, the universe, whatever you believe, wants us to slow down so that we do not burn out and can finish the drill and can finish the job here and do what needs to be done. Okay? Because when you don't have all the answers, you got to constantly figure them out a little bit. Okay? Here, that's going on. Yeah, don't overwhelm ourselves. Don't burn out. Was there something else I said there? Yeah, and so that we can kind of work with the process. Okay. Another reason why we don't have all the answers as well, again, is because it's going to force us to go inwards, right? And to constantly go in and check in with our heart and our happiness and joy, which again, I just explained is key to the past, for why we've been stuck, especially the past 3 of 5 years. Okay. That's going on. When you don't have all the answers, not only do you have to slow down, okay, so that you don't force and overwork and burn out and do everything all at once. But when you don't have all the answers, you also have to slow down so that you can constantly check in with yourself to get the answers, to make sure your heart is okay with this, that your heart is in it, that your emotions are feeling it here as well, in the way that it is that you need. So I hope you're understanding this. Yes, we're getting answers at this full moon in Libra about how to turn our lives around out of old things into new and better things, which I do think will definitely happen by July of this year. But these answers are not all at once. We're just getting a few at a time. Okay. And we're just getting a few at a time here so that we don't get overwhelmed and then back out, so that we don't ruin the surprise or push a surprise away before it happens, because I think there might be a surprise here that's going on. And so that we don't rush the process and burn out. And so that we remember to constantly check in with ourselves, and maybe even spirit, maybe even intuition, and keep coming back to that heart place and that heart center throughout the process. And maybe one more reason I'll give you too, that we don't have all the answers as well, is to trust, to learn to trust ourselves, to trust our intuition, to trust a higher power, and to have faith. Because when you don't have all the answers, right? And you do one, but you only have 2 steps, and then you do 1 step, and then you do the second step, then you're kind of out in a limb. Is it going to come? Is it going to happen? So it's also learning to trust your instincts and to trust a higher power, and to have faith that you can do it, or you can do it with spirit here, in order to bring a lot of these things together that it is that you need. Because that's also, again, what's needed here is that internal focus here to help. So I think it's a lot of that, to trust yourself through the process and to really build that up. Yeah. Anything else? Spirit. Want to trust. Yeah, which is also, I think, a big thing that's needed, right? And slow, okay, maybe this is the next thought here, and slower, right? Not having all the answers at once, which means they might come a little more slowly, is not a bad thing. Maybe that's the last thought that I'm feeling that I might leave you with. It's not a bad thing. You know, sometimes we associate slow with bad and speed with good, which I think I talked a lot about in 2022. There was one year I spent a lot of time in my horoscopes talking about that. A lot of times we do that. I think that in some ways that's also because of Pluto and Capricorn. You know, Capricorn in some ways a lot about growth and success and like constantly moving up the ladder, you know, and so I think that we're taught that like we want to grow and constantly move up in a lot of ways. And I think that's how Pluto's distorted Capricorn, by making it like that. And I think that there's also something else that's trying to emerge here. You know, one is not better than the other, right? Speed is speed. Fast doesn't mean good. Slow doesn't mean bad. They just are. They just are what it is. So me saying like, we're going to get answers, but they're going to come one at a time, and it's going to take us now until July, which is like, what, 3 or 4 months? I don't know how far away it is. Yeah, that's really fast, actually. April to July, I mean, to me is pretty quick, but me saying it's going to take a few months is not me saying, oh, our ideas suck and it's not going to work. It's not saying a bad thing. That's a neutral thing. It's a fine thing. It's going to take a few months. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to be great. You know, so don't put a value judgment on the next few months. Don't put a value judgment on like, oh, it's going to take 3 months is like, oh, it's bad, or, oh, it's going to suck, or, oh, we don't know what we're doing. Like 3 months is fine, or however long it is till July of this year is a fine time. Just because it's going to go, we're going to have to pace ourselves doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong or it's going to be bad. It's going to turn out great. I think it's going to turn out better than a lot of you think it is here. That's going on. Okay. And maybe that's another thought here on the speed, the slowness of it, right? Which really isn't that slow, but it's also a lot about enjoying the moment, which maybe now I'm getting into the new moon in Taurus a little too much here. That's coming up next, but enjoying the moment. You know, Taurus is about enjoying the moment, enjoying the little things here. And even, you know, the full moon is in Libra. And if we want to talk about a healthy expression of Libra can be musical, rhythmic, the rhythm of things, you know, and sometimes the rhythm is fast and sometimes the rhythm is slow, and just enjoying it. So I think another thing why we don't have all the answers, which is making us go a little bit slower, right? So that we don't freak out and continue all these other reasons here, is so that we can also enjoy the process, enjoy, you know, the moment, enjoy the next few months, even though there may be some fear, obviously, around it. It's really all about empowering you. It's really all about you stepping into your power here And because we're going to change our life and it's actually going to work this time. And because we're going to do it not by having all the answers, but by trusting ourselves, right? It's really all about empowering you to trust yourself here. And, that can be a very scary thing at times, but a very beautiful thing to look back on, a very beautiful thing to witness. And so, part of the reason why we're not getting all the answers and maybe forcing us to go a little slower so that we can appreciate the moment and who we're becoming and kind of savor the journey of us really growing and learning to kind of be and evolve to what will eventually happen here as well. So I think there's a part of that. Okay. And that's what's going to, I think in July, right, what's going to emerge, well, what we're moving towards is like, yes, new, different, and better circumstances, relationships, money in a very physical and tangible way. I think we're also going to see that are going to solidify and take hold. And I think we're also going to see a new sense of self that's more empowered here, less obsessing about the future and what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and who thinks what, and more living in the present and in tune with ourselves. Okay. And that's it. Maybe what I'll do for a minute is I'll just give a few, examples of how this energy might play out. So let's talk about moving for a minute. Maybe some of you have been wanting to move home for a while, the past few months or years or whatever. Maybe it's been hard. You haven't really known where to move, or just no move has ever really worked out. And you've been overthinking it or worried or hesitating or whatever. Well, what could happen at this full moon in Libra is that, yes, there's still a lot of that going on, but all of a sudden you, when it comes to moving, could calm yourself, get more in touch with your heart and what you're feeling, and then get an insight. Maybe not the whole enchilada, just an insight about one or two next steps you can take to move home or to find a new home, whatever that is. Start looking online, get a realtor, look in this different place instead. And then you could make some decision to follow that instinct and to trust that, which I think will help you over the course of now till July actually move to a much better home that you like. Okay, another way this could be a job or money situation. Maybe some of you have had difficulty with your job or making money for the past few years. You've been stuck, you've been wanting to change, but you just have been overthinking. You haven't known how. Other people have been in your ear. You haven't want to upset them about your job, the money, whatever's going on here. Well, what could happen is that, yes, this could intensify a little at the full moon in Libra, but all of a sudden you will just feel really calm, I think, and go inwards to a very calm place within yourself about what you feel about your job and what kind of job you want and what you feel about money. And that will give you an insight with one or two next steps, not all of them, not the whole enchilada, just one or two next steps about your job and money, what kind of job that might be and what area, where you might start looking, who you might talk to connect you to someone in the industry that you want to be in, or to get the money that you need here. And then you might make a decision based on that intuition to start with that one or two steps, connecting with these people, whatever you might need for the money, and that then helping you, especially by July of this year, to finally adjust your job and your money to be better. Hey, this could be a relationship thing here. Maybe you've had a relationship issue for the past few years. Maybe you've been in a relationship, you haven't known what to do about it, or maybe you haven't been in a relationship at all. You've been stuck, just uncertain of what to make happen. Well, that could intensify a little at this full moon in Libra, but then all of a sudden you might just get in a really clear, calm place within yourself about relationships and what's important to you and all of that. And then you might get an insight, not the whole enchilada, just one or two next steps that you might want to do with the relationship situation to either maybe start going out to this place or maybe say this to the person that you're in a relationship with. And then I think you might make a decision to act on that small intuition, which is actually very significant, but might feel small here, to make some adjustments, which will start now until July to help you fix your relationships for the better. And this could also be a health situation. Maybe there's been a health thing that's been going on for you the past few years that you've been trying to change to be better. That's been hard. You haven't known what to do. You've been stuck. It's been a lot of thinking. Doctors have been giving you the runaround, right? Their relationships too, that have been making it really hard and all of that. And that can intensify at this full moon in Libra. And then all of a sudden, out of that intensity, you could just get in a really quiet and calm place and just listen to yourself and your own body about what you think is going on with your health. And then all of a sudden you could get an insight, not the whole enchilada, but maybe one or two steps about what you might want to do. Is there a new doctor you want to try? Is there a different type of doctor? Is there something you just want to research online here? that you then unexpectedly do, which can then start to help you between now and July finally get your health in a much better place, and little by little give you the answers that you need. Okay. So it could be something of that sort. Okay. Still some intensity. Maybe just to see, do you see from the example, there's still some intensity. There's still some sense of I'm still stuck. I still don't have answers. I'm overthinking everything. And then all of a sudden, we start to figure it out. But it's not like, sorry, I'm going to say one other thought here, but it's not like a huge figuring it out. It's not like I've got all the answers and everything's clear. It's just like a still small voice about one or two next steps. And that's just what we need here. So keep that in mind. All of a sudden we start to figure something out, and it's just a small step or two, but there's something about it that's big, right? It's like words fail so much when some of these situations, we're only getting a little insight of like one or two steps, and it may feel small, but trust me, it's huge. These one or two small steps that you're going to get are going to be huge on a larger scale, are going to be huge to finally turn your life around. So if they feel small, don't discount it. They're actually going to be the right steps this time. The small right steps are actually going to work. They're not going to run you around a bit. They're going to get you to the right place. So they might feel small, these insights, but they're huge. Okay? Believe, trust, have faith here. They're going to get you to where you need to go. Another thought that I wanted to add too is like, now how does this full moon connect to the last new moon we had 2 weeks ago in Aries? Because they're also kind of similar too. Didn't I say there was going to be some breakthroughs around that last new moon in Aries? And here we are again, still getting them. Okay. What's the difference between the two? Well, and how do they relate? Well, the thing is, I think we needed that time. We needed the new moon in Aries and we needed the full moon in Libra 2 weeks apart to get the insights and to fully understand and unpack them. Okay. And I think part of that is at the new moon in Aries, we still had some planets retrograde, right? Mercury and Venus were still retrograde. They were coming, these insights, but they still feel a bit nebulous out here. Big idea, big concept. And now at the full moon in Libra, they're landing. Now at the full moon in Libra, they're becoming more conscious. We're becoming more consciously aware in a more finite way of like, oh yeah, okay, this is what it is. And this is what needs to happen. You know, it's starting to land more in that way. So I think that's the difference between that one and this one. Last new moon 2 weeks ago in Aries was big concepts, ideas, general ideas about what we need to do next. This full moon in Libra, more specific steps with a more finite understanding, especially now that the things are direct about what needs to be done and how that we can channel into a decision, right, about something here. Right. And I hope that makes sense, because there's a difference, right? Do you see there's a difference between having a general idea, right? Oh, do you know, like someone saying to you, oh, meet me at this parking lot at this store. And it's like, okay, do you know where it is? And it's like, well, I have a general idea. I think it's on this street or whatever. And it's like, okay. And there's a difference between saying, oh, okay, no, I know exactly where this store is. You take this street to here, to there, and then it looks like this. And you got this business on the side and this one over here. There's a difference. They're similar. There's a difference. Last new moon was a general idea about where we need to go and what we need to do. This full moon is specific application of that. Not a whole bunch of steps, not a whole bunch of specific applications, but one or two, all you need to get you to where you need to go. Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your insight degree really quickly. So let's do that. Let me pull that up on the screen. The insight degrees were not written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degrees from spirit. But I like to look at these because I think that they can offer a different perspective and kind of confirm or add more color to things that I did or did not say. So we're going to do that. The full moon is in Libra at 23 degrees. I think the degree of before and after can all be relevant because the planets are in motion. However, I'm just going to focus on 23 and 24 today. If you'd like to read 22, please feel free to pause the video and do so. But we're going to go in here. It says collective cycles are everything here. You are caught between worlds, part of many, belonging to none. Okay, changes are imminent. The air is buzzing with future current events. So what does that mean to me? It indicates to me that there's something about this full moon in Libra that's a lot about change here. Change in the air, where we're kind of, right, ending old things, beginning new things, and where we're in that in-between space, right, caught between worlds, or on the cusp, so to speak. So that's what I'm getting here. We're on that cusp between letting the old go and the new actually forming and coming together. Not only that, but I also get a sense too of anxiety, right? Does this make you anxious? Like, changes are imminent, the air is buzzing, right? So this may make some of you feel uneasy, like something's about to happen. Something's about to happen and I'm uneasy. And the truth is something is about to happen, okay? Something is about to happen that you can't see yet. That is unexpected. When you're in a centrist Gemini, even though I think it's going to be for the better. So that is the truth. We are in between the old and the new, and we're finally about to take the leap into the new, which is good, but it is anxiety inducing and a little scary. Okay, let's read on. It said no rest, no quiet, no continuity. Again, speaks to that anxiety constantly in the mind. Can't rest, can't sleep, I'm nervous. Okay, it says you verge on astounding things, held poised at the edge. You feel propelled by destiny to obsess upon where we are all now, where we came from, and especially where we are going. Okay, this again speaks to the overthinking in the past, stuck in the past, stuck in it. Okay, right? Especially because we're kind of in that weird in-between space. Okay, now it says gathering impressions toward the harvest, staying tuned for further developments, and knowing it's going to come any moment now. I can feel it rising up. Okay. Okay. You know, harvest is an interesting word. I believe I mentioned that at the beginning of this video. And I see harvest, I think we're harvesting two different things right now, which kind of makes the word harvest a little complicated for this full moon in Libra. I think that there's part of what I might see as the harvest is that the life we were living for 30 years until 2020 that we were trying to get rid of. Okay. That's a thing from the past. And then part of what I see as the harvest is like what we've been trying to do since 2020 to now, 2025 to get, so there's a lot of things, and that's how kind of I see the world. There's a lot of cycles happening at once, and we can be on different parts of the cycle, and they can all be happening together here. And I think what we're trying to do is finish the Pluto Capricorn 30-year cycle that's going on, and then step into the new one that started in 2020 to 2025. We're trying to kind of bring those together. So I don't know if that helped any of you, but that's how I see the harvest. There's two of them going on here. One we're trying to end and one we're trying to fully step into, I guess, to connect back to the Libra thing. And this degree is saying that we're caught in between kind of these two cycles, and we feel like a change is coming, and it's making us anxious and overthink and reflect on the past, what we could have, would have, should have done here. That's hard. Okay. Now let's move on. It says the Libra 24, blown by the wind, shifted by every current, absolutely adaptable. You can become anything on demand. Compelled to cover up, to externalize, to be what others wish, instantaneously given over before you can stop it. Okay, I think that this degree might be going in a little bit of a negative place, but I actually want to see this as a good thing now. And what to me this is saying is that we're actually compelled to move on into the new things. So that even though we are in between worlds, and even though there is a lot of anxiety about it, there is a part of us that wants to move forward, that really wants to move forward, and that is going to internally within us be compelled to do it here. That's going on, okay, and that we need to do it before we can think about it. Maybe that's another thought. Okay, then it reads on, an immense gift and a special curse. The gift is to open up every situation simply by being there and participating. The curse is to have your own self discarnate and oblivious. So this also speaks to some of the challenge around it. Not only is there a lot of anxiety, a lot of obsessing over the past, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but it's also hard, speaking of the identity, right? Which goes back to the earlier challenges. It's also hard to kind of be a different identity that you didn't have before, and then to see your own self discarnate, right? To see the old self kind of go by the wayside and to not care about the things you used to care about. So I think there's also some of that there as well. Okay. There's a very sharp edge of doing world work and losing self. See, losing the ego, losing the identity in the process. Agreed to beforehand. Yeah, it's what we signed up for. Quite strange, yet perfectly beautiful, and becoming the world out of love, compassion, and a kind of selflessness, which just has to be so very transparent and empathic. And there it is. It's like, may feel scary, but in the end, it's like a beautiful thing because it's going to bring us to a better place that we've been trying to get to here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, anything else that I want to add? Yeah, it's like we're in between the old and the new. We're kind of on that edge. It feels anxious and nervous. There's a lot of overthinking about what we coulda, woulda, shoulda done wrong, and it feels weird about our identity and who we're going to be. But I think we're feeling compelled to move on anyways and need to do it before we can obsess about it here, because that's really going to get us to a different place and all of that. Okay. Another thought that I want to note here, I'm not quite sure how to say this one, is that I do think that this full moon in Libra is a lot about letting go of Libra traits, especially with the South Node there all last year. And again, I don't think that when the South Node leaves a sign, all of a sudden we go back to normal with that sign. No, we still are doing the South Node with that sign until the North Node is there 8 or 9 years later. Okay. So there's that. But I do think that a lot of it is about letting go of this, but we could, if you wanted to interpret the full moon about stepping into things, we could also step into Libra traits, but in a more healthy way as well, which I was kind of thinking a little bit here too, with like Libra having to do with love and compassion and all of that this last degree kind of reminded me of. And I think the way that I reconcile that is that when we start to do the things that are going to put our life in a better direction, right, that are good for us, and quit people pleasing, then all of a sudden it gets easier for us to love and be kind to other people, right? Because we're feeling like we're set. Sometimes it's hard to help other people when you don't feel like your life is in a good place or you're where you need to be. But once that is fixed, it'll all work together. So I think that's another thought here, by us releasing the overthinking, the hesitating, the people pleasing, all these past events, and doing what's in our best interest for us in adjusting our life. It is by nature going to help us come back around to the Libra traits in a healthier way, and to feel more kind to other people, ourselves, to live more in harmony with ourselves and others here. That's going on too, and to just be more at ease when our situation as well. So it's also important to keep that in mind. We can be stepping into Libra traits more fully, but I think it's only after we kind of do these things here. It's only after we kind of do what we need to do for ourselves and trust our instincts, and may not fully come together until the next new moon, right? In Libra 6 months from now as well, that we might want to take a look at as well. So keep that in mind. Okay, and I think maybe that's all I'll say, because that's it. I'm just going to go ahead now and pull a card. Let me go back to the chart here. Okay, and see what the card is for the energy. Okay, we got one. What is it? We've got the 9 of Wands here reversed. And at the bottom of the deck, we've got the 10 of Cups upright. The 9 of Wands to me reverse speaks of like unfinished business. Unfinished business, maybe just having a lot of things that we want to do or we're hoping for, or we're excited about, that just haven't come together, especially because it is a 9. 9s are like almost completion, but not really, and it is reversed here. Not only that, but it can also indicate like he is resting, maybe just feeling overwhelmed about completing the task or whatever needs to be done, or fixing it, or getting to the other side here. And we've got the 10 of Cups at the bottom of the deck, which to me indicates maybe a need to honor our, surprise, surprise, I'm going to say this, to honor our emotions first, and to fulfill that, to fill that cup fully with the 10 of Cups, the fullest of the cups here. That's going on before we finish what needs to be done. So that's another thought here. There is some things from the past that are not where we need them to be, that we've just felt stuck or unable to do. And the way to fully finish those things from the past and fix our life and get it where we need to be is to honor our emotions fully first, and to fill those up fully. And then once you do that, the rest will come more easily. And that also is another way of making sense of the past few months. Because remember, the horoscope from the past few months has also been one of rest and honoring our emotions, right? And kind of surrendering when there's still like a whole bunch of things in our life that are up in the air. And so I think that this really speaks to that. We're not where we want to be yet even though we're so close, because we needed a minute to get in touch with our emotions first and to fill our cup and to honor those. And once that is more fully done, which I think is what we're getting to here, then we're going to have the answers and we're going to be able to finish the drill and know what needs to be done. Okay, another thing too, maybe some of you are like, well, what do I do to get in a calm place to honor my emotions? Maybe that's what some of you all are asking here, because that was part of the advice. And look at what the family is doing on this card. They're just doing something fun. You know, they're out playing ball, they're out at a park, maybe they're at the beach, you know, spending time with, you know, maybe with people that are on the same page as them here. So maybe that's the thing. If some of you want to know, okay, well, I understand that I need to get in touch with my emotions in order to finally get the next few steps of what really needs to be done here, then the advice I'm going to give you is the way to get in touch with your emotions might be through going out to a park or playing ball or being at the beach or something of that. I mean, could also be something else. Maybe you love to play music. You know, you go to a concert, you get an instrument, something like that. Maybe it's something from childhood, right? There's kids in this card here too. It's something that makes you feel calm emotionally, and there's no one size fits all. You know, I can't really tell you what that is. You have to figure it out for you, because what makes you feel good emotionally, you know, may not be what makes me or someone else feel good emotionally. So you really got to figure out what that is for you, that fun thing that kind of puts you in this like easy, playful state, and do that and as much as you need there. Okay. And I think that's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. I wish you all the best this full moon, and I will talk to you 2 weeks from now at that next new moon, which will be in the sign of Taurus.